Alrighty, so next weekend, and it's the weekend, we got Cooper here to help me out. We're going to be doing some more bricklaying. So we've set up the gazebo to get a little bit of shade because it's quite a warm day today. I think it's about 24 degrees. It's quite hot if you're just standing in the sun all day doing bricklaying. Also the mud will dry out a bit too quick. So we've set up a board this time. We're going to put the mud on there and then we'll just walk it across to start with there, and then we'll eventually be working on the two piers in the shade. Might be that one there and this one here by the time the sun goes over. So all the piers are moving along, but I want to get all of this wall and piers started, and then I can just chop and change, do a few rows, just for a change of scenery, go to another pier. So we're just mixing up the first lot of mud now and we'll get into it. So yeah, I'll check back later on. Hi guys, so I just got a little bit of bricklaying for you here at the start. So there's obviously a lot of bricklaying that we've been doing and we still have to do. So I'm just adding a little bit in to show you that we're continuing on and that it does take a bit of time. And this is why the videos have just gone to bi-weekly for the moment, because doing this big job, to get the footage, enough footage to make a decent video, I can't just do a whole video on bricklaying. So I've had to stretch it out over 2 weeks to get enough decent footage to put together for you for an interesting video. So I hope you enjoy it and I hope you don't mind watching a little bit of bricklaying here. Cooper's giving me a hand. He's getting a little bit frustrated, but he's doing a fine job. He's just being a bit hard on himself, but he's certainly able to do it. So I really do appreciate the help from Cooper. So we've had some funny weather over this weekend where I had hoped to finish the whole job, and we had a 30-degree day followed by a 20-degree day followed by a 34-degree day today, and that's a bit hot to be out there laying bricks. So luckily though, I guess for you guys, that I'm here editing this video instead of being out there finishing off the bricklaying. So just, you know, playing around with some editing here, just trying to make it interesting. So if you guys have got any suggestions for what you would like to see to make it a bit more interesting, feel free to let me know. I'm just playing around and learning as I go, so yeah, don't think that I'm going to dismiss you. I'm always open to suggestions for the editing.
Bricks are different lengths.
It's really quite satisfying doing this bricklaying actually, because I'm not a bricklayer. So when you stand back and look what you created after you've done a bit, it's really satisfying. So yeah, to anyone who wants to give it a go, it is very satisfying. So now guys, we're over onto a little bit more interesting work in making up of the top pier capping. So what I did to make this was I had a layer of blue board that sits on top of the pier, then I've put a layer of 25mm polystyrene that just strips around the edge, and then I worked out the exact angle for those the peak bits there, and I put them all together, glued it all up with tape and let it set, and yeah, it dried up nice and strong with that liquid nails. It's quite good, that liquid nails. And then I just ran around and put this render bead on all the edges, and that center bit that I'm just putting on now, that's actually the corner bead, and I've just cut the like you could say the wings off of it just to leave the bit in the middle so that I can get a good thickness of about sort of 3 to 5 mil. And actually it ended up being quite heavy at the end of doing all this, but that's good because heavy's solid. Well, in my book it is. So just underneath as well, because it hangs over, put the bead on there. So you know, this is like the icing on the cake, this top capping. It really made it pop once I put that up there. So just mixing up some render. So this is acrylic render that I'm using. It's what they recommend for the blue board, and it's just a bag. You just put some water in there and mix it all up, and it's quite a sloppy mix, but it's and I know that I've watched renders before and they do slop a lot of stuff, so I don't think I'm doing too bad because I slopped a hell of a lot of stuff on the ground, but I tried to catch what I could and reuse it, but you know, it's not always that easy. So I put the water in first, a little bit too much water, and so I had to keep adding more and more render till I got the thickness that I want. But I found that if you put the render in the bucket first and then the water, you have a solid mass at the bottom that you can't stir. So I think that the water's best to go in first. You can always add a little bit more water if it's dry. So next time I'll be just going a little bit easy on the water to start with, and add render and water to get the amount that I want. So it turned out that the wheelie bin is the exact size to hold this. It's right height and it's smaller than the pier capping, so I thought that's perfect to find a nice shady spot and render this capping. So now I'm no more a renderer than I am a bricklayer, so I've got the tools that I think I need. You can see me trying to work out, oh, how do I pick this stuff up? It's the first bit of rendering basically that I've done on the house, so I'll only get better from here. So it's just lay it on, pretty messy, just make sure you don't go too low, and then you can screed it off afterwards is the method that I used. I don't know what the experienced people would do, but that worked for me. So just filled in all the hollows, and then I've got this longer, like I don't know what this tool is. It's a nice little tool, that's what it is, but it's like a float or something. So just make sure that you can run an edge along those beadings that I put on there, and yeah, it's surprising how flat I got it. So that all worked out. So yeah, I cut a bit of this out so I didn't bore you with the whole bit, but just worked my way around, and I think I ended up having the exact amount of render just by fluke to do this capping, so that was pretty good. So you'll see on some of the things that I've rendered there's some low spots, but you can just come back and fill them later on. So but this capping on the top of it didn't have any low spots. It really came up good. So just doing the edge, and then after it was dry I came back and I did the bottom. So with those beads, nice strong plastic beads to run along, and came up nice. I'm happy with that. A few little, you can see bits that are missing there. So that leads me on to another little rendering job. The capping for the I don't know what the technical name for all these parts are, but the capping over the panels of the fence, you can see me just getting a big dollop and just throwing it on there, and then just got to make sure you got a trowel wide enough that can run along the two beads, and you run along, and as long as those beads are in the right spot, the render ends up right. So yeah, that was another job that was relatively easy to do for a beginner like me. And in fact, I don't want it to be too perfect because I don't want it to look too modern. So just by leaving a few imperfections in it, I believe it's just going to make it look a bit more where like there was a chip over time and someone's come along and put a bit of render in it, or they've just repainted over it and they haven't bothered to fix the little chips or the divots, and you know, and I think that might just make it a little bit more authentic as being 100-year-old fence. So we'll see when the whole job's finished. So that little float again. So once you float that down, you let that go hard for a bit, and then you come back with a sponge and you sponge it off. So I've got the finishing sponge float, which you just got to get rid of most of the water, and then you can really shape it up with that afterwards. So that's quite a handy tool, and that's something I've picked up off of YouTube also. So you can see how easy doing this edge is. Just scraper against the edge, up and then down, and then just run your trowel along the two beads, and it leaves it perfectly flat. So it doesn't get much easier rendering than that. Without beads, forget about it. I'm not going to try it. I could do it, I guess, after a bit of practice, but I don't want to spend forever practicing. I just want to get this job done. Always pays when you're doing a job to just keep looking back over what you've already done. So here's the sponge float, I'm calling it. I guess that's what it's called, but I'm not sure. So shake out as much of that water as you can, and then you can just run it over it. Just smooths everything up, fills any hollows, because it reactivates the render, makes it liquid again, and then you can push it into the low spots. So that's a good way of filling a few little minor low spots. The hardest bit's getting the water out. So anyway, that's a good little tool, and it's quite satisfying getting that nice finish off of it. Alright, so the next job on the list of things to do for building this fence is making the rusticated panelling. So what I'm using for that is 25mm polystyrene sheets, and I'm just cutting the pieces the size I want, and you can cut them quite easily with a jigsaw. So long as you can cut a fairly good straight line with a jigsaw, it's as easy as anything. You can use a bread knife, you can use you know, a hacksaw blade, anything that isn't too aggressive. So I just put the setting on the jigsaw straight up and down so it wasn't too aggressive, and then I'm just putting quite a few blobs of liquid nails on there and pushing it on, and it just hangs there because it's light, it doesn't go anywhere. And I just checked the level on this so that I could make sure that if something's a little bit out of square, that at least I'm working to a horizontal level. And yeah, I know those panels are square, so it should all work out and look right to the eye, because those horizontal lines you might be able to line up when you're walking along and see if they don't line up exactly and one's skewed, isn't quite level, you'll see it. So yeah, just level that. So I'm just working out, I'm putting a 90mm post there, where you can see those threaded rods. It's going to be a 90mm post that the gate will hang off of. So I'll put that in afterwards, after I've rendered all this, just so I don't mess up the post. So cut a fancy little bit to go over the capping, and I did a mirror image so that it would fit on the other side. The liquid nails works really well to glue styrene to styrene. You put it on there, squish it in, and it just stays. Especially this particular brand. I can't tell you what brand it is actually right at the moment, I just know which one it is. So you can see how easy this job is to do. You just cut the pieces to size. Now around the front door I put blue board on all of these panels before I rendered them, and talking to the guy that I got the styrene from, you don't need to do that, and he said that all modern fences these days are built out of styrene and then just rendered. He said sometimes they use corners like I'm putting on here, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just render it and get a nice edge on the render. So you know, I thought, well, if I put this beading on, that's going to help to support the corners, and if the render sticks to the polystyrene, okay, then yeah, that's a win. I don't have to buy all that blue board to put on there. So I'm just mitering these corners up, try and make those 3-point corners meet up nicely so that it looks like an actual corner, not, you know, where it's out of alignment and you've got a bit of plastic sticking out. So yeah, it's quite easy to do. You know, once you've cut a few, you know exactly where to mark it and what length it needs to be, which I basically just cut with no overhang, exact size of the styrene, and mitered it, and then they all met up pretty much spot on. So that's another easy, enjoyable job that leads to a bigger job that, you know, it's an exciting build-up job, we'll call it.
Recording.
Action. So another weekend again, and Julie's home.
Yay!
So we're working on doing some more bricking. We just had to put the gazebo up again, and it's windy today, and so we had to put the ropes on, and it's like
and it's very hot.
And it's hot. It's 31 I think today. We were complaining when it was 21, now it's 31. So we definitely need the shade of the gazebo and sprinkle myself down every 5 minutes. But we're working on laying some more bricks, and I've nearly finished the first fence section over there, which I'll show you later on in the video. But yeah, just sort of update you and say we're back at it again for another weekend, and yeah, we're going to see how far we can go, and yeah, we're getting closer every week. Just this bricklaying just takes a bit of time, so especially now with the heat and the mud dries quickly and pain in the bum, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But we got our drinks, we got our cooler.
So we got some. I've drunk it already, but we're on the soft drinks today, not the beer.
No beer today.
We thought let's just get some sugary cold drinks into us, and yeah, try and just be comfortable mostly. So yeah, all right. Well, no point standing around talking. We might as well get on with the work.
Let's get back into it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
Okay.
Well, talk to you soon.
Catch you later.
So back into the bricklaying. So we started off slow with just adding the last couple of rows onto this letterbox pier, and Julie was working on the next one down, which we can't quite see, but I thought it was a good angle with it. You can see it sitting on top of the pier capping that I just rendered, so that just gives me a nice eagle eye view of it. So then down to this pier. Now I started off doing a bit of work here, and Julie came and she helped with it, and then Julie basically took over the following day after this, and she did it all herself, and it's all level, it's all plumb, it's all square, and it's perfect for rendering. So yeah, she did an awesome job with that. And I had another pier, the pier that's down further, it's got angles on it, and so you got to cut bricks, and it's just slow going with those, but this one's not too bad. So Julie got stuck in and she enjoyed building this one. She built it up till it was higher than her head, so that was a job well done. Good morning, friends. So I'm back out in the yard again, and I'm going to continue on this fence. Julie's just doing a few things inside, and she's going to come out and join me again. We're going to see how we get on. The weather's so much better today. It's like 10 degrees cooler today, so we should have a good day. We won't overheat like we were yesterday. And yeah, we'll see how far we can get. I'd like to get these piers, try and get these piers finished. We got today and probably tomorrow as well, as it's a public holiday. So yeah, we'll see how we go. It would be good to get those piers done, then I can do all of the paneling and cappings, and it can really push this job along. So I'll just give you a look at the bit that I've finished. So check that out. When that fence is done and we've got that paneling, and we've got that whole fence all the way around here, all the way back to there where the carport starts. Man, it's going to look beautiful in here. I've just bought a new tree. I got a little crabapple tree here, so we'll put that in the ground there. That'll look nice, and we're going to plant this out. Going to have some garden beds through here, and going to plant this out, a bit of a cottage garden, just to make things nice. Lots of flowers. Probably get that from my grandma, I would say. So anyway, I'll put the camera down and start the cement mixer up and start laying bricks. Alright, talk to you soon.
Is this our last batch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, dig holes in their garden.
Yeah.
Oh, well that's fair enough. Yeah, I'll
Well, they don't come along. I'll be there with on the kitchen.
So I thought that was enough of the bricklaying videos for you, and now we're on to some rendering. So this first fence section here I'm going to keep working on until it's complete, but at the same time I'll be continuing on with the bricklaying and trying to finish all that part off so that I can then go on to the next panel. So you can see I've got the chamfers, all that centre section is all blue board except for the bottom row of bricks, the 3 rows of bricks there. So I thought I don't need to be bricking up a panel that high and then trying to put chamfers on the, either cut the bricks or get some angled bricks or do any. I thought blue board is the easiest way to go. So I have put the fiberglass tape on all the joints. Where that bit of timber that you can see is, that was a bit of a mistake, and on the next section I won't be having that timber exposed, but it is treated pine, so I should be fine with it, as long as I'll just keep an eye and see if I get any cracks. But the paint that I'll use, the outdoor paint, has got a bit of flex to it, so it should hold up for quite some time. If I see any cracks on it, I'll need to just come over and give it a fresh coat of paint just to make sure it lasts, but I'm not expecting. I think the fiberglass tape should pretty much hold things right. So I just went around the edge first, just because I think with what I know from rendering, which is very little, it's easier to concentrate on one thing at a time. So you'll see I've got a wardrobe change a couple of times, and that's where I've done it over a couple of days. So yeah, just doing the outer surround firstly, and doing that bottom bit was so easy to do. When you can work up like that, it's really easy. When you've got a bottom edge that you've got to be careful with, that makes things a bit harder. But yeah, doing that just onto the bricks is just so easy. So just getting that render on and making sure there's not too many low spots. So now I'm going on to the little small sections there, making sure that there's render that goes right into the corners. That's why I left a little gap. So I left a little gap where the polystyrene is, just so that I can push some render in there and make it adhere to the other render and be all as one. Not that it will matter, there's nothing in there that can be damaged by water. I've got the bricks, I've got styrene, and I've got plastic, so there's nothing there that can be damaged by water. So just giving it a bit of a smooth off now. So as this stuff dries, it's all a matter of timing on when to wash it down, when to trowel it, and I'm still learning that. So throwing a bit of render on the other side now, and luckily my float that I've got is the right size where I can just run it from side to side, and look at that, perfectly flat. So that's good. The little bits in between those boxes, we'll call them, I've got a nice little I think it's a pointing trowel that's just a little bit smaller than that area, and I can get that really nice. So you'll see in the later videos, if you happen to look for them, that I got in there and got a real nice finish inside there. So same thing on this side, you can see I've gotten changed. So this is the next day. I find it a bit stressful doing the rendering, that's why I don't want to try and do it all in one hit. Luckily it's got a lot of little areas, so you can do it. Yeah, I could do one little area a day and make it perfect, come back and do the next one, but you know, I want to try and do this relatively quickly as well as try and make it look really good. And when you knock on that, that's quite strong now. That it's only about 3 mil of render, but on top of the styrene it's strong. If someone hit it with a hammer, they could crack it, but then I could just come along, put some more render in it, and I could then use the sponge float and blend it all in and then paint it, and you would never know that it was damaged. So that's not going to be a problem if I do get any damage over the years. So when you get a bit that's bigger than the size of the trowel, it gets a little bit harder. So now I've thrown some render on this big flat panel. So I know from rendering videos that I've watched, they say you always start from the top and work your way down. So I did that. I'm sure there's a good reason why you do that, I just don't know what it is. So just really throwing that render on there quite quickly, and then you come back and you can float it and then sponge it up. And I actually did get it pretty flat, which was, I'm not going to say a miracle, but I was happy that I managed to get it flat without having to go over and do patches of render where it's got low spots and all that sort of thing. So just throwing a little bit extra render where I've got some low spots. Now I've got my steel float that I've wet, and that just allows it to slide over the render and not pull the render back, because I have noticed that the render will pull off if you don't have wet tools so that it can slide. So bit by bit it's all coming together. So I've got a little bit more to do to finish the rendering on this section, but once it's all done, I've then got moulding. So underneath the capping and underneath the curved capping and the pier capping, it's going to have some moulding. So that's another bit that you're yet to see what I'm doing, but I'm making that out of polystyrene, and I'll go through the whole process of how I'm making them, so you can see that it's quite an easy thing to do, and it will add a lot more interest. It looks good like it is, but it'll look even better with the moulding on. So make sure you catch the next video, because this section will be finished in the next video. So don't forget to comment and subscribe if you're not subscribed, because there's plenty more of this fence coming and other jobs. So thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Cheers.